For decades, we thought we understood how civilization began.
First came agriculture.
Then settlements.
Then religion.
But what if we got the order completely wrong? This is Decode Station.
Part 1. The old story. So, for a really long time, historians and archaeologists, basically everyone, operated on this one universally accepted timeline of human civilization. It was this neat linear story, right? The kind that makes perfect logical sense and has been taught in literally every classroom around the world for decades. We honestly thought we had the whole sequence of human progress totally figured out. It was this ironclad three-step progression. Step 1, humanity had to figure out how to farm. We needed agriculture to get a stable, predictable food supply before doing anything else. Then, step 2. Once we had those crops, we could finally stop wandering around. We could build permanent houses, settle down, and actually live in villages. And finally, step 3. Only after we were settled with a bunch of extra food and free time on our hands did humanity finally have the social organization necessary to invent complex religion and start building massive temples. It was essentially the absolute golden rule of history. Farming built the villages, and villages built the gods. Simple as that.
Part 2, the discovery.
But, history is rarely ever that simple. To see why, we're shifting our focus over to southeastern Turkey, to a specific spot that didn't just casually question this long-held timeline, it completely blew it out of the water. Get ready to rethink everything about that three-step model we just talked about. We are talking about an archaeological site called Göbekli Tepe, and what's absolutely wild about this place is that it was actually first spotted way back in the 1960s, but it was basically ignored. Researchers at the time just took a quick look, assumed it was an abandoned medieval cemetery, and moved on. No big deal. It actually wasn't until 1994, when a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt decided to take a closer look and started digging, that the real truth was unearthed. Schmidt started his excavations and very quickly realized this site was far, far older and infinitely more complex than anyone on Earth could have ever anticipated.
Over 11,000 years old. I just want you to take a second and really let that number sink in. Göbekli Tepe dates all the way back to roughly 9600 BCE. Based on literally everything we knew about human history up to that point, a site this complex, built this long ago, should be completely impossible. We are talking about a time right after the end of the last ice age.
To really grasp the sheer scale of time we're dealing with here, let's zoom out for a second. Göbekli Tepe isn't just a little bit older than other ancient wonders. It is a staggering 7,000 years older than Stonehenge. 7,000 years! And it completely predates the Egyptian pyramids. Think about that. When the builders of Stonehenge were dragging their very first rocks into place, Göbekli Tepe was already incredibly ancient history to them. It's like a voice echoing to us from the absolute dawn of human existence.
Part 3. The problem.
So, we have this site that is impossibly old, and it exposes a massive, glaring anomaly. Göbekli Tepe is a monumental problem for our traditional model of history because it absolutely does not fit into that neat step-by-step progression of agriculture, then settlements, then religion. So what exactly did Klaus Schmidt find out there in the dirt? Well, we are talking about monumental, megalithic structures. They uncovered these massive stone pillars, some of them weighing up to an astonishing 20 tons. And these insanely heavy pillars were carefully arranged into these massive circular structures. But the craziest part? They weren't just blank rocks. They were covered in these intricate, almost menacing carvings of animals. We're talking snakes, foxes, wild boars, descending birds, and insects. Creating this would have required incredible artistic vision, intense physical labor, and just a massive level of social coordination.
And right there is where we hit the core contradiction. Who built these monumental structures? According to the old timeline, the expected builders should definitely be farmers, right? People living in permanent houses with a steady food supply. But at Göbekli Tepe, there was zero initial evidence of any houses. No domesticated trash pits, no farming tools, nothing. Which means the actual builders were nomadic hunter-gatherers. People who were supposed to just be wandering around in small, unorganized bands, just trying to survive day by day. Yet somehow, these nomads managed to come together in massive numbers to construct these incredibly complex religious monuments. How does that even happen?
Part 4. The revolutionary idea.
Faced with this completely history-breaking anomaly, how on earth do we make sense of it? If hunter-gatherers built massive stone temples before they even built basic farms, well, our entire understanding of civilization is totally backward. And that brings us to Klaus Schmidt's revolutionary, completely paradigm-shifting interpretation of the site. Schmidt proposed something radical. He said that religion may have actually brought people together first, and agriculture may have developed later specifically to support these huge gatherings. Think about the implications of that for a second. It means shared beliefs and this deep human desire to worship together necessitated these large-scale gatherings at Göbekli Tepe. But here's the catch. You can't feed a massive workforce of temple builders just by foraging for berries and hunting wild game in the local woods. It's just not enough food. So humanity was basically forced to invent agriculture simply to feed the people who were building the temples. It completely reverses the entire story of human progress.
Part 5. The Unsolved Mysteries. Now, while Schmidt's theory gives us a brilliant new framework to look at things, it also leans heavily into the unknown. Göbekli Tepe is a place that honestly leaves us with way more questions than answers right now. It's like a giant puzzle where we've only found a handful of the pieces. For instance, how in the world did a bunch of hunter-gatherers transport 20-ton stones? Seriously, we are talking about nomadic people who did not even have wheels yet. They didn't have advanced metal tools, they had no domesticated beasts of burden like oxen or horses, and no agricultural infrastructure. Yet they somehow managed to carve, move, and perfectly erect these colossal pillars. The sheer logistics of an operation like that remain an absolute profound mystery.
And that leads us to an even more tantalizing question. What else is still buried under the dirt? You see, excavations at Göbekli Tepe are still going on to this very day. What we have uncovered so far is just a tiny, tiny fraction of the whole site. Experts think maybe less than 10%. Researchers have actually been out there using ground-penetrating radar, and they believe that much larger and perhaps even more complex structures are still hidden beneath the earth. And here's the really wild part. They were deliberately buried by the very people who built them. They just filled them in with dirt and left. They're still down there, just waiting to be discovered. The story of this site is definitely far from over.
Part 6. Why it matters.
So, why does this specific dusty hill in Turkey matter so much to us today? Why should we care? Because it stands as arguably one of the most important archaeological discoveries of modern times. Göbekli Tepe fundamentally challenges the very core of our origins. It takes those basic, textbook assumptions we've held on to for over a century about how society, religion, and civilization started and flips them entirely upside down. It proves that the human drive for meaning, for shared belief, and for creating monumental art together, all of that existed long, long before we ever planted a single seed of wheat.
What if civilization didn't create religion?
What if religion created civilization?
Stay curious, stay skeptical.